Hopefully this is the right window. Let me put it in full screen. Okay, so hopefully you're all looking at my title slide. I'm Julie Ma. I'm the program manager for the Northeast Cyber Team program, which is where the AskCI platform started. First of all, I just wanted to thank you all for joining today and for your interest. I'm hoping that we'll have a lively discussion today so that it'll be a very bi-directional conversation. So just a quick introduction to AskCI for those who aren't very familiar with it. It's ask.cyberinfrastructure.org or AskCI. You can type either of those into your search and find us. It's a public, searchable Q&A platform dedicated to research computing. And as I mentioned earlier, it was a project that came out of the Northeast Cyber Team Initiative and is really a joint project with the campus champions. We definitely would not have been able to get this off the ground without a lot of support and input from the campus champions. It was launched almost 2 years ago now at PERC 18. And it's based on a discourse platform. Not sure if everybody's familiar with discourse. I will spend a very short amount of time on that as well. So the goals of AskCI are basically to create a Q&A platform specifically to aggregate sort of the long tail topics that come up when researchers use advanced computing. And why do this when we have Stack Exchange out there? There's really two key reasons. One, often the answers that you find on a lot of other Q&A platforms out in the public domain don't necessarily pertain to research computing specifically. There are sometimes very different answers if you're asking a question from the point of view of running on a cluster than on your laptop. So we thought it would be really helpful to aggregate those topics here. And sometimes questions get asked on general purpose platforms and they just languish if they're very HPC specific. People don't get there very often, and the people that can actually answer those questions don't get there very often. So again, we're trying to build a place where people can come to ask questions, and then where experts check in every once in a while and try and answer them. And the goal of all of this is, of course, to promote self-service learning. This will create, if we can get researchers and the population in general to start looking here and also having these topics come up when you do a Google search, it just, it's faster time to research. And also it helps to free up help desk resources that are answering the same questions over and over again, and also sometimes having to discover the same answers over and over again. So just by sharing this information, the hope is that it will free people up so that they can work on the next question instead of the question that's already been answered somewhere else. And overall, the goal is to make this the go-to platform for people that are doing research computing. So the benefits of doing this, I covered some of this a moment ago, is largely to reduce duplication of effort throughout the community. There are not enough people that do research computing that are facilitators, people such as everybody on this call. There are so few resources and so many people that we can help that in any effort to reduce duplication of effort is a good one. And also by making it in the public domain, archived and searchable and tagged, we're trying to create this resource that helps the general population, and especially researchers at small and medium-sized institutions that might not have a facilitator on campus at all, or might only have one. So that one facilitator is quite overwhelmed trying to keep up with so many domains and so much progress, and at the same time, trying to aggregate communities of interest in research computing that are, domain specific, finding a place for them to also kind of congregate and exchange information is a benefit that we have specifically through Locales, and we'll be talking about that in a minute with our panel. And the overall benefit of all of this is to hopefully increase collaboration throughout the research computing facilitation community, as well as the research computing community at large, and overall elevate the practice, help things move forward faster. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we launched AskCI at PERC 18. And about a year in, one of our very dedicated volunteers that has been helping us keep AskCI going and fresh and interesting, Vanessa suggested that maybe it would be interesting to have, sorry, I'm getting an echo right now. Are you guys getting that as well?
I muted the person.
Okay, sorry about that. Anyway, Vanessa recognized that that AskCI, having this Q&A platform, this public Q&A platform, and trying to encourage people to share information, could even be taken to the user level at Stanford, where she was. And she said, wow, if we could create this public Q&A platform that people could start engaging with, both the research computing, staff in SRCC, but also between each other, wouldn't that be a great thing? Could we create a community of users in addition to having a place for Q&A to happen? And that was the basic idea behind a Locale. And so initially we called Locale sandboxes, because it was kind of a place to play with this idea of how do we engage with our users? What are ways, what are mechanisms that we can use to really start encouraging communication in a lot of different ways, both user to user as well as with the staff. And so we decided to stop calling them sandboxes, because we didn't want to give the perception that the Locale mechanism was a sandbox, or that it was not professional or real or professionally maintained and managed. But the idea of a sandbox, I still like to say it, just because I think it's a really good way to think about this as people that are thinking about trying different ways to engage with your constituents. This is a sandbox. It's a place for you to try different things. And the panel that we've assembled today is in different states of development with their locales. And so, we really tried to distribute, we have some people, one of our first and most successful locales that participated in a pilot even before we introduced this was Brown University, and Mete Tunka is with us today. And then Larry Witzel from University of Maine System literally just put his locale up a week ago. And then we also have a locale that is domain specific. So it's focused on, it's research SOC. So it's focused on, the locale to support research SOC, which is a community of interest around cybersecurity. It's based out of Indiana University, because that's where the PI is, but their constituents are all across the country. So all of these are different models that we've been playing with these locales. And I really hope that I really encourage everybody to ask questions and see where everybody's at with these. And we also have Kaylee, I'm sorry, I didn't mention Kaylee Nelson earlier, Kaylee from Yale, who's just been, she put up some of the most interesting topics on her locale, many of which we would like to steal and put on the main Q&A thread on AskCI. And that's actually one of the benefits that we have on AskCI, is that each locale looks like it belongs to that locale operator. It looks like it belongs to Brown. It looks like it belongs to Stanford, Harvard, UMaine, Missouri. But if there are topics that are really of general interest, all we need to do to switch them over is just very quickly change the category, and then it appears in the main AskCI Q&A instead of in the locale. And similarly, if a topic gets posted on AskCI that is very specific to a particular institution, we can similarly put it in that category in that locale, rather than have it on the main Q&A thread. So that facilitation of transfer of topics is another value add of having all of this under the umbrella of AskCI. So just to give you an idea of really all that it takes to create a locale, all you need to do if you decide you want to try to make one is provide us a logo and preferences for type, color, and background if you have any. And then we'll create a Locale framework for you. And then we ask that you post 5 starter topics, 3 with answers, just so that if one of your users comes to the site, they see something there. We recommend actually having multiple users post authors so that, multiple authors post topics so that it looks less scary for a user. If a user comes here and it's only one person ever posting topics, they might think, oh my gosh, that's like that guy's a super user. I don't want to be posting topics here. So if you have multiple users all posting topics, then it just looks a little less intimidating and more likely that your users will feel like they can post a question here too. And then the last thing is you have to identify a Locale moderator that will join our monthly meeting, and that's it. You can create a Locale. So I'm going to stop sharing my PowerPoint and just give you a quick, just show this to you really quickly, and then we're going to turn it over to our panel. Sorry, technical difficulty here. Okay, so what you should be seeing now is Ask.CI, and I'm actually logged in, so you can see a broad variety of topics that are being posted on different sites. And if you want to see the categories of locales that we have right now, we have our 2 main threads, which are the Q&A and discussion zone. We also every Friday post a Friday factoid, just fun things that are happening in the universe of computing, not necessarily just research computing, and with the goal of having people interested, we tweet them and hopefully have people come to the site. Now you can see there are a number of locales that are up, and then there's a bunch that are under development. And everybody that we have on the call today has a site that's already up. And I'm going to log out just so that you can see what it looks like if you just come to the site. And basically what you see is 2 threads, Q&A, discussion zone. So if you don't want people to know that your locale exists, they won't know that it exists unless you tell them it exists. So if you, as University of Maine or Yale or whoever, you communicate to your community that there's this new locale here. And what they will see when they get to it, I'll just go over to Brown just to give you an idea. They will see the Brown Q&A, and they'll see announcements that are pertain particularly to Brown, and they'll see topics that are of interest to Brown University. So that's just a real quick walkthrough. I know that was very fast, but I just wanted to give everybody an idea of what we were talking about with Ask.CI. And now I'd like to turn it back over to our moderator for the panel and have you introduce our panel.
Hi, Julie. This is Martin. Thanks for the intro. I have a quick question on this, if you don't mind, before we start a panel, because I kind of dabbled around being a newbie on the website, and I'm seeing, even when I sign in, I essentially see just the general topics, and I'm not able to see any of these Friday things you were talking about. And of course, I'm not able to see any of the locales. So that's okay. Huh?
So the way Discourse works, we may re-enable Friday factoids, but it was kind of, we wanted people to mostly see research computing topics when they logged in. So we suppressed all of those on initial login. So when you first get to the site, as I showed you, all that you can see is what our 2 defaults, which is our Q&A and our discussion zone. But if you look under categories, you can pick any category, and you can, and then as soon as you read a topic, that will now start showing up in your latest and your top, and it will start showing up in your view of AskCI. So basically, you can control what you want to see and what you don't want to see at any given time. And for example, if you kind of bopped around and you hit every locale for 30 seconds like I did, you can see, you know, when I first logged in, there were topics from many different categories flying by on my you know, on my latest thread, but that's because I have visited all of those categories. So if you, I can reshare screen if needed, but if you just go to the hamburger on, or actually if you just, yeah, go to the hamburger on the top right of the screen, one of the options is categories, and it lists all the categories. If you click on categories, you'll see all the categories, and then you enable them by visiting them.
Great. Yes. So I did that, and it works.
That worked? Yay. Yeah. Always good to know that it works.
I'm kind of wondering if we should somewhat, for the slow ones like me, to kind of put it somewhere, you know, on like maybe you got that little thing on the top that shows up at the very beginning that gives you some info. Maybe put a blob there. Something.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I will add that. All
right, so let me introduce the panel. So we have a few other of the early adopters of the AskCI on the panel. I'll probably ask Julie to chime in a little bit too for the questions that we have. And if you have Mette Tunka from Brown University, Josh Drake from Iowa, I believe, if I read the email address right, Kayla Nelson from Yale, and Larry Witzel from Maine. And so what I'm going to do is, so that we don't really waste too much time, I'm going to ask the question, then I'm going to ask everybody in the order that we have in our list here on a call doc to answer the question. If you don't really have a new information to add to what other people have said, then just say we do the same thing or something like that, so that we don't really repeat things too much. And then finally, I will, the next question I will do in a reverse order, so from the bottom up and so on. Yeah, so, and I see one person, Josh, already preceded these answers here. If you have time, please do so for your site as well, so we can have this documented for the future reference. And with that, I will read the first question, which is, what motivated you to set up a Locale for a local, for an HPC center? And I guess I'm going to skip Julie in that, because Julie, do you have a Locale for your place too?
We actually have two under development, one for MGHPCC, which is the Massachusetts Green High Performance Computing Center, which is based in, which is a consortium of MIT, Harvard, Northeastern, UMass, and Boston University. And it's our data center for those 5 institutions located in Holyoke, Mass. And that's basically where the Northeast Cyber Team Initiative is home. And we also have one for the Northeast Cyber Team Initiative. And ours aren't up yet, but they will be soon.
Oh, okay. Also, I guess you are qualified for the answer too. So what motivated you for that?
Well, I realized that, and it's just kind of funny because, you know, AskCI is also homed out, you know, the whole AskCI project is homed out of Northeast Cyber Team Initiative. And it suddenly occurred to me that, yes, of course, we should have a locale for the cyber team, especially because we're in our 3rd year. And we've actually had some really interesting outcomes that we would like to share and let people know about, and let people know how to continue to access the cyber team after it's gone. So that motivated me to realize that, oh yeah, even as the parent organization, it would make sense for us to have a locale, you know. So it was just kind of a light bulb suddenly went off.
All right, sounds good. So let's go to Mette. Hopefully I'm reading your name right. And you guys, from what I understand, have been using this for a while, right?
Yes. Hi, everybody. Yeah, we started about a year ago to redo our website, and that's really kind of where it started from. We said, you know, it would be nice to have a Q&A area, someplace where we can have a discussion in a somewhat informal way. And what's the best way to do this? So we stumbled upon Discourse and said, this looks like it might work for us. And then the timing is fortunate, because I ended up, I believe, the Campus Champions last year. And that's where I believe Julie was presenting. And So it was perfect timing where then I approached her and we actually quite easily, with help from Julie, got our locale set up. And really that's where it started. It was just, it was the interest in having this Q&A be part of our website. And we've actually got it so that when you go to our website, a pop-up comes up and it says, join the discussion. And then if you click on that, it takes you to our locale.
All right, great. Yeah, okay. I wasn't sure if I'm muted or not. So Josh, from what I understand, you have some other goal in mind in the IU, right?
Right. So IU is the home of one of the homes of Research SOC, which is a security operations center aimed at research, NSF-funded research. And so our goal is a little bit different. We use the Locale as our community of practice site. So one of the things we try to offer to both our clients and people in the research community is the opportunity to discuss the practice of cybersecurity at their institutions in a way that is not sharing any sort of sensitive information, but allows them to talk about issues and solutions in a community setting. And so ours is sort of aimed at creating more of a community resource than it is doing a Q&A. Q&A sometimes does come into that, but for the most part, we're trying to build a community of conversation between different practitioners of security.
All right, sounds good. Kalia, I don't know what you guys do at Yale with this, so please tell us.
Yeah, so at Yale, we're a little bit similar to Brown, where we had thought for a while that it might be nice to have some kind of StackOverflow or question and answer part of our own website, and we never really got it off the ground on our own. And then when we heard about Ask.CI, we were like, great, we'll just join that and be able to also be part of the larger discussion outside of our own locale.
All right, and so finally, who do we have here? Larry. So Larry, you were just starting, same reasons, other reasons?
Well, we're just starting. We participated with the Northeast Cyber Team back in 2018 when they first started AskCI. But we kind of drifted away from it a little bit, and then recently we decided to come back. We're putting our frequently asked questions in AskCI as a sort of a starter for that. And we're in a slightly different situation where we're part of the UMaine system. So there's half a dozen campuses across Maine, very geographically dispersed. And so this is just a really convenient way for us to sort of centralize that communication structure. How do you do things in the UMaine system?
All right,
So
sounds good. So
Martin, I just wanted to speak to Patrick Clements had posted a topic or a
Yes.
question in the chat. And I thought before we go a little further, I just wanted to quickly touch on that because I did breeze through that kind of quickly.
Sure.
So, so the question is, can you better describe the idea of locales? Can you see questions and answers from other locales, or does it basically create a walled garden? And the answer is kind of both. When it starts out, it's a walled garden, but the locales are visible to everyone, which actually we see as a positive thing. So if you, and our tags, which, cover content. So like there's a tag for Slurm, a tag for Open on Demand, for every major subject right now, there's a tag. And the tags go across all of the locales. So if you click on a tag, you'll get all the topics on AskCI that cover that subject matter. So for your users, when they first join, if you point them to your locale, that's all they'll see. But then as they become more sophisticated and they start using tags, if they want to see, oh, how do other universities do that? Or is there more information out there about, Gaussian or whatever? You can get more information as you become more familiar with using the platform. So it's not really a walled garden.
Thanks, Julie. This is Patrick. So how does searches work? Do you get like your locales hits first and then the general populations later?
So if you're searching on your locale, you'll get your locale first. If you click on a tag, you'll get everybody. So you'll get every topic that has to do with that, that has that tag associated with it. So kind of both again. But when you see a topic on, and it might be easier if I share screen again, but when you get your list of responses, you'll see what category they're under. So each locale basically is treated as a category. So you'll get the Slurm answer for Yale, then you'll get the Slurm answer for UMaine, then you'll get the Slurm answer, for each institution, and you'll see which institution the answer came from, as well as whatever the question was that was tagged.
All right, cool. Let's move on to the next question, which is more kind of what I want to hear about from everybody, and that is how do you use the locales and how does it align with your other support strategies, and how heavy you rely on it essentially in your support. So I'm going to start from the bottom, from Larry.
Okay, well, we've just gotten this locale up and running. In fact, I'm not absolutely sure it's fully running even yet. We've got some content in there. And for us, it's primarily a means of communication. One of the things that we learned when we started interacting with the AskCI folks back in 18 was that our setup was really quite different. We use Torque and Moab. Everybody else in the world seems to use Slurm. There was a lot of peculiarities to our own situation. And so when we were looking at the kinds of things that were posted out there, a lot of them weren't particularly on point for our users. And the locale gives us the ability to sort of, what are you guys saying? Walled garden, right? Well, that's good because we can keep an eye on the cabbages and the carrots and the peas and all those things that we're developing, and sort of do that initial cultivation of them. And as we come up with something that's useful, spread it out in more and more different ways.
All right, who's next from the bottom? I'm missing my document. It's hard to go back and forth. Okay, Kalia.
So we have just started rolling it out. We've announced it to our users via our newsletter, and we're adding it to the front page of our documentation site as yet another way to seek help in addition to office hours and emails and tickets. Most of our interactions happen either via in-person office hours or tickets, and so we're hoping that this will be sort of a middle ground between those two. For right now, what we have posted there is what I would call frequently asked questions, things that we get tickets about a lot, and just writing a very sort of well thought out answer to those. And so our goal is to, when people write in with tickets that we're seeing a lot, ask them if we can sort of basically repost the conversation over into Ask.CI, and then that will encourage them to post future questions there.
All right, cool. We actually have a sort of a FAQ on our webpage, so I would be kind of curious to hear if others with the heavier use that are kind of on the top of our list here have kind of a feedback if they have a FAQ as well. How does this work? How kind of more static FAQ works with compared to the discourse or to this platform? So let's see, Josh is next.
So sorry.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so our thought process with that is our documentation right now is very like article-y, where it's just pages on a topic. And so this posing these as sort of frequently asked questions just might help people find what they're looking for in a different way, where if they think about what they're looking for in more of a question form as opposed to already knowing what subject to look under or to be able to search for in the search bar, it could just be another way for them to get access to the same information.
Yeah, makes sense. I kind of struggle with how we can offer our users the best way to access the information. So I agree. Another way is good. So the more ways they have, the better. All right. Let's see, Josh.
Yeah. So we have sort of short and long-term goals in mind for our usage. We're currently in sort of a beta stage where we are working directly with about 4 facilities, and we handle all of our support for those facilities just directly via direct interaction between their project liaison and the facility. So in the short term, what we're doing is using the Locale as an outreach platform. Part of our mission is to provide benefit to the community as a whole, which includes things like education, best practices, etc. So we use it as a platform for weekly discussion topics, promoting free webinars that we present once a month, and trying to stir up just discussion among members who are not our clients. In the long term, we do plan on having it be more a place for research.clients clients to interact with one another, to discuss threat landscapes, possible issues and solutions, etc.
All right, thanks. Yes, the advantage of these discussions, I definitely, is that people can interact with each other. It's not, the staticness is not there, right? Like in our documentation that we use. All right, Mette, do you have anything else to add?
I guess the only thing that I'll add is our approach has been just to integrate it with our overall offering. You know, we've got our website, we've got our listserv, and this is a part of that offering. And I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to force the issue a little bit. You know, we're trying to change a little bit of a culture, right? I mean, we haven't had this in the past, so we're trying to change the culture, and we're forcing people to go there, hopefully in some respects. And what I mean by that is, if we have any downtime for maintenance, if we have, you know, we had our rates change for our high performance cluster. So we posted a link there that said, you know, we're going to have our rates change. You should go check it out. You know, any excuse we have, we try and post it there. Again, it's with the intent of kind of changing the mentality and getting people in the habit of going there. So that's a considered effort on our part.
Mm-hmm. All right, sounds good. Next question is, and I will roll in Annelies' question in the chat into this. So how's the reception among users for the locales that you have? And Annelies adds, if you find that it invites more participants that might be intimidated by more techie StackOverflow or Git forums. So let's roll that all together, and let's start with Mette again.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I have evidence that it invites more people, you know, because they're less intimidated or anything like that. I'm not sure I have evidence of that just yet. It's still somewhat early for us. I think the response we've gotten is, you know, people like it. I just think we have to continue with our effort to get more and more traffic there so that it becomes an easy touch point for folks. And, you know, that's what we're focusing on right now.
All right, Josh.
I can't say that it has been made much of a difference in terms of interacting with people who might be intimidated by a more tech-focused setting. Our user base tends to necessarily be tech-focused, so I don't see that distinction for us. In terms of reception, I think Julie mentioned when you launch the Locale, you need to pre-populate it with some discussion, right? And that we've been working on this chicken and egg problem, right? You can't have discussion without participation. You can't have participation without discussion. So having a regular sort of upkeep of some sort of discussion on the page, even if it's sort of artificially being done by the moderators themselves, helps to draw more people into the site. You get more views, you'll get more responses. We found for a while when we just sort of put it out there and let the community participate in that, it sort of, there was some discussion for a few months and then it essentially died out. We had absolutely zero activity on the Locale until we started to post weekly and bi-weekly discussion topics for people to be involved with. So I think the reception is sort of tied to how much effort the moderators are willing to put in. I hope that at some point it does become self-sustaining, but we're not there yet, and I'm not sure what that cutoff is.
All right, sounds good, Kalia. You guys had this for a while, right, at Yale, if I remember right?
We set it up a little while ago, but we haven't had a lot of people sort of adopt it. So yeah, we haven't done a super huge push on it, which we're hoping to do soon. So I don't really have, you know, a comment on the reception, but we're hoping it will be positive.
All right, yes, I'm kind of trying to quickly go through your locales as we speak. So I'm looking for feedback from other people, and looks like you guys don't have much, but most of the people don't. So I guess it's more, it's all in how you present it, or how much you push it, I guess, right? And get the people on board, and then they hopefully will go there instead of to your web page when they have some basic questions and things like that. And Larry, do you have anything else to add?
No, we're really in the same boat. We don't have any data yet.
Right. Okay, let's see what next question we have. Are there any concerns about questions or issues that should be not placed in a public or somewhat public website? Does anybody have those? So let's start with Larry.
We have, we're just starting, so we haven't had any cases of that yet. And, I can't imagine the scenario there where that really becomes a big problem. But, if it is, then certainly that's what moderators are for.
Yeah, I would probably argue at this point you're going to put it to your standard ticketing system, which will be just close to you and your support, our support basically, and the user, right? And so this is more sort of a general FAQ web page documentation kind of site, I would guess. Kalia, anything else you would want to add?
Yeah, when I think same, we don't have any specific concerns, but if we decide something doesn't belong there, we'll just move it into a ticket and have that conversation in private.
Right. Yeah, and Josh, you are probably, you basically answered the same thing. And
Yeah.
Mette, do you have anything else?
No, I agree with what was said.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. So we have two more questions. So maybe we might actually be not pushing it as hard as last time. Let's see what do you have here? Canada question. Somebody just put that stuff over. Maybe it was me. Canada question answers in your locale be found in your institutional docs. So essentially, are you linking the AskCI to your documentation, to your standard documentation or web pages? And how do you decide that you should be doing this linking? And I'll start with Mette.
Yeah, we will answer questions with potentially links from our webpage to, direct them there for things that are already written. And as far as deciding what should go there, to be honest, we haven't really parsed it with that level of granularity yet. I think our main goal is just increase traffic, whether it's artificial content, whether it's real content that we feel people should know about. All we want to do is really just direct traffic there, get people using it, get people having that be a point in their resources for getting information. I think hopefully once we get it to a point where we have significant traffic and we then need to decide, well, what makes sense and what doesn't, we can address that in the future. But right now we're putting a lot of things out there.
All right, Josh, can you add to this? It looks like you have a few other comments there.
Sure. So we don't have institutional documentation for the research doc that's available publicly. It's only available internally to our collaborators. And so we would not really put anything onto the locale that was not meant to be shared. We sort of have a data classification system which marks things for distribution. So we would limit anything on the locale to wide distribution topics. We have thought about some other directions, having the community of practice discussions inform the documentation, and perhaps taking information we learn from the locale and including that in our internal documentation. But that's still in a pilot phase for us. And so until that becomes more well established, we don't really have any interaction between the institutional documentation and the locale.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like it's kind of like you hear from users. This is another way to hear from users what might be their concerns, and so you can then incorporate their documentations. That's kind of how I work with getting our FAQs posted. Right? Once you get to the point where it looks like it's a general problem, then you have to start somewhat documenting that. All right, Kalia, anything else to add?
Yeah, so we thought hard about this when we started to fill out our initial topics and the way we were responding for users when they eventually start posting their own questions, is we didn't really want two places where information can get out of date. We've got our documentation, which we keep up to date, And then, yeah, we could always post a comment on a past question with a clarification of the way something changed. But we thought the safest way to respond to these would be to obviously answer the question with some context, but ultimately point to our internal documentation for any sort of detailed technical thing, like the parts of the answer, which might change at a future date as sort of the clusters evolve.
All right, that makes sense. I have to keep the information up to date. That's definitely an important issue. Okay, Larry, do you have anything else?
No, we do the same sort of linking thing as well. Right now, we are not linked into AskCI, but we do intend to have that be the case in the future, in the near future.
So Martin, I did want to just add a few additional pieces here.
Yes.
That we have some examples, and unfortunately Tori Patel wasn't able to join us today, and neither was Vanessa Socket, but they were some of the first people to create locales. And Vanessa developed some tools where we're linking tag content, again, using the tag mechanism, so that from their internal documentation, if you click on a tag, you'll not only get their internal responses, but you'll also get any topics that are on AskCI. And similarly, from their locale, you can link back into getting additional information from the Stanford site. So the idea is that by using the API, you can actually integrate it more if you choose to. And I think what everybody is right now, just, I think the point that Kaylee made of keeping documentation up to date, it's the ideal scenario is always to only have one source, right? And so everything points to that source. So we are trying to make those types of tools available to people once they're ready to try and integrate at that level. And it's something that I think will help, again, with just getting the answer, not just from your institution, but kind of what's out there and available right now.
All right, this is it's great to hear, because I had this idea already like 4 years ago that we should somewhat make some clearinghouse of the institutional documentation from different institutions, because there is a lot of overlap. So maybe I'll ask you guys, can you post in a call doc some links to documentation on this API that you have, or maybe some instructions, so we get better idea how actually this whole thing works? Yeah.
Yeah. So we're actually working on making that in a more digestible form right now, where it's not a one-off, but we can certainly talk online, and it's certainly something that we're working on even as we speak. So I just, because I think the idea that you had 4 years ago is a really good one. So
yes, okay, so maybe I'm not gonna push you to give us answer right away, but you have our email for the CARC community, for our mass email. When you are ready to put something out to the wide community, please do, so we can all take a look at that and go ahead and maybe use it more through our.
I can kind of peep in here. There actually are. I wrote down tutorial. Yeah, I am here. I wrote tutorials for both of these things, and it's very simple how it works. So for searching tags, if you guys are familiar with post and get requests, a tag search is just literally adding a get query parameter for whatever term that you want. So if you have a template, like a Jekyll template on GitHub Pages, that you basically take some tag from your GitHub Pages sites, so I don't know, tag for a post, and then you link it with a URL with a get parameter, it magically goes to the site and it does the search. It's very, very simple. And then the other integration, which would let you, for example, take your posts from your board, sorry, not your board, your locale. I still call it a board because I can't remember locale. That's actually just a very simple discourse integration where it's literally JavaScript that you add a little snippet to your site. And I also have a template for that. So a tutorial that you could just, not even a tutorial, basically a Jekyll template that you could just copy and use.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you, Vanessa.
Yeah.
I just want to again give Vanessa a shout out. The whole locale and the integration that we've been able to do was all from Vanessa. I didn't notice that you were on the call. I'm so happy to see you.
Yeah,
So.
Vanessa, please post it out. I have to admit, I am not a web programmer. Many of us are kind of old school, parallel computing, HPC kind of people. If the more kind of hand holding we get on this, the better. Yeah, but at least I'm speaking for myself. But just looking at the list of attendees here, I'm sure I'm not the only one like that, right?
Yeah, thankfully, if you've had experience using GitHub, you should have no problem just using it. I will note that ironically, the locale setup for Stanford was not successful. It didn't fit into the natural kind of workflow that in the tools that my group already has. And I think in reflection, I think it's because it would be very useful in the case that we didn't have already a system set up for providing support. But we do, so it was almost tedious to try to get them to also post on this other board. I also want to kind of make a distinction of how I see AskCI evolving. One really big thing to think about is like, who is the audience here? And I think we've been trying really hard to get the audience to be users. And I think when you have a locale that does have, you know, constant updating and the locale working really hard to bring their users there, it can be successful. But I think for a lot of sort of the main content of the site, the main audience has turned out to be sysadmins. And so what I see AskCI doing very well is being a discourse site where you have discussions, you can post a question, you can quickly kind of get answers. What I don't see it being is sort of a central knowledge base for questions, because if you do come to the site and you have a question, if you do a search, you get a million answers and you have to search them to find what you're looking for. So I think it's interesting because the project is sort of growing organically, and I think it is evolving into something that is useful, although it may not be the original intended use case.
All right, looks like you are more or less answering a question that we have the last one here, which is how do you explain to your community how to use AskCI Locale, and when should they look there instead of submitting a ticket? So I'm kind of feeling similarly to what you might have. You know, we have a pretty robust ticketing system, and so I'm not really seeing that much of an overlap between that and site like this, because our users are used to send tickets. And so maybe I will roll this to the rest of our panel. How do you guys feel about this? Have you been successful in moving your users' attention to the AskCI as compared to your standard ticketing system? And let's see, I forgot where I was. So maybe I start from Mette again from the top.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly if we've made a distinct difference yet. I think we've got a very robust ticketing system as well, so people are used to going there. I think it's going to be an evolution for us. The more we have good content on our locale, the more people will get in the habit of checking there first. I think that's where we see it going. I'm not sure that we've made a clear distinction yet as to when to use ticketing. Maybe we need to. I'm not sure that we have just yet, though.
All right. Let's see who was next. Josh, I think. Right.
I guess I don't really have anything to contribute here. We don't really do support tickets in our group, so it's all discussion.
Yeah, right. You look very different from pretty much everybody else that over here. That you have your own group and you're basically using this as communication to your group. Right. Okay, Kaelia.
Yeah, since we don't really have users submitting to it yet, we haven't made that distinction, but I think we're hoping it will kind of happen naturally. Also, if things don't belong on Ask.CI or maybe too specific to the user, we just move it into a ticket and have that conversation there. The idea is that it would be used for questions that might be useful to other people, generic enough that they're useful to other people, or about things that are sort of more discussion-y, or if somebody's looking for help with a particular application. And that way we can respond in a way that somebody else might find illuminating, or, you know, eventually, you know, the dream is always that the users might help each other.
Right. Larry, anything else to add?
No, not really. We're really just brand new on this aspect of it, so I don't have much to add.
Sounds good. So let me try to run through these two other questions that we have from the audience, and maybe I'll ask just the people that feel like they have something to say about this to answer. First, if faculty post questions when using HPC in curriculum, I don't think any of you guys have done anything like that yet, right? That you would have basically faculty, you know, that you support in your faculty courses or university courses that you support, or use this as a support for the courses. I guess we can rephrase that question.
We already use at Yale one of the online sort of class support things. I forget which one it is now. They keep changing it. You know, Canvas or one of those. So I don't think this would be an outlet for that, since the students already have a place where they're used to looking. But we'll see.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
plus one at Stanford, we have a really robust, it might be Canvas, I forget the name too, even though I didn't use it that long ago, that also has a bunch of other features. So it wouldn't really do much to kind of advocate for AskCI for that purpose.
We have Canvas, but we are just telling people to send tickets, and they send tickets to us. So maybe you're kind of old school on that. But anyway, the last question, which can be kind of interesting, actually, if you're trying to integrate some federated authentication into AskCI, I noticed that I can sign it with GitHub, I'm sorry, with Google, which I did. So that was easy for me, except that it didn't really, I would use my public Google, so it wasn't tying me to the university system. So do you guys have any other sort of federated things in mind?
We almost have it done, but it's not quite done yet today. But it's almost all hooked up already. We just have to sort out one more question about the institution, but we think that we have that solved. So the intent is to have OAuth turned on.
Okay, great. So I think I'm gonna try to wrap this up because we have five more minutes left. I would see this kind of from my perspective, comparing it to the call we had last month where we were talking about Slack, right? And other ways how you can do online support through more interactive sort of portals. This definitely has its place. I do like the way that it's a little bit more organized than Slack, right? When we are talking about Slack last month, the big question in my mind was how do you actually let people go through the previous replies and how to search through them. And it sounds like the people that use them have ways, but I wasn't persuaded. And so this has more of a structure that might be useful for this. And I'm really looking forward to Vanessa's posting of this API that you guys have, because I really think that might kind of be the or possibly contribute to the golden grail that I'm hoping for, of having a sort of integrated documentation among institutions.
Where would you like me to post that?
Yes, please. If you can put it to the call doc, or you can even post it to the chat.
Okay.
We're also working on a document that puts a wrapper around Vanessa stuff, and we'll send that to. We can put that in the call doc and also send it to the researcher-facing track when it's available. I think the two of them together for many people, you can just use the documentation that Vanessa has. And Martin, as you described earlier, there's some other folks that might want a little bit more introduction. So we're hoping that between the two of them, we'll be able to do both. And I just wanted to quickly respond to Robert. The tags currently can be added by anybody. And we just watch them right now. And as the tag list gets bigger, that's part of the job of the moderators to just prune the list. But so far we haven't felt the need to do that, other than to eliminate duplicates that are just separated by a dash or something.
All right, awesome. So I'm gonna turn the mic to Jenna to close this call up. Thanks everybody. And yeah, Jenna, please.
Thank you, Martin. So I wanna just say, Josh, your background is so fabulous. I think we all wanna do that moving forward. So he has instructions on how to do it in the chat if you also want to do this too. So just want to thank today's participants. So we've got Julie Ma, Meta Tunka, Josh Drake with a fabulous background, Kayla Nelson, Larry Weitzel, and Vanessa. Everybody helped out. It was a really good discussion. Today's discussion was user support via AskCI and Locales. Lots to think about, continuing kind of this theme about how do we support people in a way that leverages it so it's not just one-on-one, but extends outward into the community. So really appreciated that discussion. We've got a future topics document in the chat. Just invite anybody who wants to suggest a future topic for this call to click there and make an addition. You can upvote things that you see. If you haven't signed in, please do so now. Our next call will be April 9th, where we will be discussing remote support, interestingly. We'll be talking about how you can do consultations, workshops, different ways that we can support our community remotely. We're all expecting to have some hands-on experience by April 9th, so definitely do come back and we'll trade best practices and lessons learned. This call was recorded. The recording will be up soon. We'll send you guys a link when that happens. And I just want to thank the people who worked on the call. So Martin for hosting today, Bob Freeman, Claire Mizumoto, the entire RF steering committee, and I'm Jana Nugent. Thank you for being here today. And stay safe, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.